Welcome to the show, everyone. What's going on? This is the Smash Pod, brought to you by Smash Up Fantasy Sports, the only next-gen fantasy sports game where you can choose your players, choose your Smash cards, and dominate your opponents. I am your host, Chef, and I'm with my co-host, Hawk, as always. What's going on, man? How are you doing today?
Dude, doing better. Fantasy Week 2 turned out to be a little bit better than Fantasy Week 1. Quarterbacks passed for over 200 yards. What a concept.
Now, I know you started off 0-1, like with every team. Did you get to 1-1 with most teams, or are they floundering, or how are they doing?
Yeah, this is almost every league. I basically got to 1-1. Smash Up leagues, I got back up towards the top of the standings, except for, as you know, our home league, our Dynamos league, where I'm now 0-2, having lost by a combined 1.5 points. So
Hey,
I won't get into the pain, but
that's fantasy, baby.
It's been a painful couple of weeks.
I'm in so many leagues. I think I did this on purpose. I have like the perfect spread of success so far. I have 6 teams, and not including Smash Up. So I have 6 teams. I'm 2-0 on 2 teams, 1-1 on 2 teams, and 0-2 on 2 teams. So I have a good blend of happiness and depression. One of my teams has Love, Debo, AJ Brown, Ferguson, and Kenneth Walker.
So for our listeners, if your teams are suffering because of those players, you can blame Ming because clearly he angered the fantasy gods and they are punishing that team.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's why we have Smash Up Sports, right? Like you can play Smash Up every week. Injuries doesn't matter. And you can just choose players who are healthy and you don't have to worry about navigating that BS. But we digress. Let's get into today's show. Today, we're going to be talking about, actually, injuries is one of our topics. We're going to dive into a chef's table today. We haven't done chef's table in a while. Can I get a yes, chef?
Yes, chef.
There we go. We're going to do a chef's table today and talk about some of the headlines around the NFL. I mean, we're in the thick of things, right? Like we're heading into week 3. This is where the sample size begins to become a little bit real. Week 3 kind of equalizes things and we get to begin to see where those trends head. You know, to kick things off, there was a little bit of news recently. I don't know if it was a shocker or not. I mean, maybe some could say we saw this coming, but it looks like Bryce Young was benched out there in Carolina. I guess they just looked terrible enough in their first 2 weeks, and now they're going to be starting the Red Rocket, Andy Dalton.
Wow, this is crazy. I mean, this is really a huge accomplishment by Carolina. They have managed to make the Bears front office look competent, which I haven't seen for.
Yeah, I would assume that's really hard to do. I mean, everyone was high on the Bears coming into the season. They don't look too good so far through 2 games either.
No, but give them their moment. I mean, for Bears fans, like, wait, we won a trade? Like, when is the last time that happened? Like the Khalil Mack trade with the Raiders? Is that...
I guess. I mean, the Bears are still, I mean, they were hyped coming in and they're already not too happy with things so far. But I mean, at least there's like, they're 1-1 so far, right? So it's not terrible. They just haven't looked great. And I think they had higher expectations for Caleb Williams. I think they were expecting a CJ Stroud situation. It just hasn't been that thus far.
You know, and the thing to remember is CJ Stroud situations are rare. I mean, CJ's special, right? That's a great thing about him. But most rookie quarterbacks are not like that. So if you're not Bears fans, there's still time.
Definitely the exception to the rule. But let's jump into it. We kind of alluded to injuries at the beginning of this pod, but let's dive right into talking about the injuries that we've had thus far because it's already making its nasty way through almost every team. I mean, off the top of my head, the Rams stand out to me as a team that's already suffering a ton of injuries. You've got Cooper Kupp, you've got Puka, their O-line's banged up, but some of the stars across the league, you got CMC, got Amon-Ra, had a little bit of a scare, but I think he'll be okay. Pacheco's now out 6 to 8 weeks. Tua just had a major injury. Mostert's been out. Debo just got hurt, also on the Niners. AJ Brown's going to be out a few weeks due to a hamstring. What's your take on all this? Is this just the same thing that we're seeing every year? Or does it feel like a lot more this year because we're in it right now?
I think it's every year. And, you know, it's funny. You always go on like Reddit and like every year people are like, this is the most injuries we've ever seen. But it's the same. And like the kind of funny thing to me, too, from the list you went through, there's some flukes like Pacheco. But, I mean, honestly, if like you loaded your fantasy team up with like Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, who healthy last year but had a lot of injuries during college. You know, CMC who had a hamstring issue during the preseason. We all thought, oh, the Niners is playing a game. Debo, who's been out every year for a few games. Like a lot of these are things you maybe could have seen coming.
Yep, exactly. I was just going to say that. I think some people play with fire during the draft season. They're like, oh, you know, like, yeah, he's a little injured, but he'll be better. Or, yeah, he has an injury history, but he'll be better. It's like, no, I think we need to pay attention to this track record of injuries or if a guy's banged up in the preseason or over the summer, right? Like Cooper Kupp, people were excited about Cooper Kupp after that big game when Puka went down, but Cooper Kupped like he has been doing the last few seasons. and now he's out again. And it's like for a week, people thought they were getting the Cooper Cup of old, but they just got the old Cooper Cup.
Yeah, a little more 2 games, 1 cup, just all in there
Oh,
now.
damn. You had to throw that in there.
Oh,
An
sorry.
interesting.
I don't know. 9 minutes. I don't know.
Yeah, just on that comment of like, this is probably the same amount of injuries we're seeing year after year. I pulled an interesting nugget that actually there were 700 fewer games lost due to injury in 2023, so last season, versus the previous year. So actually the amount of games lost went down last year. Obviously this year we don't have enough data and information yet to see how it compares to last year, but there were actually less injuries last year. So I think maybe you're right. Maybe like it's just in our minds because it's happening now and it's a little bit of recency bias. But yeah, we definitely see too many injuries. Like no one wants to see these injuries and how it impacts our fantasy teams and obviously like the livelihoods of these individuals and the teams that they play on, right?
Well, that's the thing. If you're a fantasy player, you definitely feel it because if you lose even one player on your team, you're like, why are the gods cursing me?
Every year.
And I'll say this too. It is funny in fantasy because we've all seen it. Like every year there's injuries, and every year you've got those guys in your league who complain like injuries are the thing stopping them. In my experience, it usually evens out. And out of like a 14 team league, there's usually one team here that just gets screwed over by injuries. Everyone else, they just kind of like to complain because it sucks when it happens.
Yeah, but it always happens, right? But I don't know. My main takeaway is like these football players need to get insurance for sure. All right, let's keep this moving around the horn. Our next topic, which is not specific to just this one player, but we're going to talk about him because he's having a bit of a slow start along with the team. But Jamarr Chase, do we think he's deserving of the money he wants? I mean, he wants, I think this is his own quote even, not just Justin Jefferson money. He wants to beat him by several millions of dollars a year, not just $1 a year. So do we think he's deserving of it? What are your thoughts on that, Hawk?
First, I don't blame him. Listen, I go to my boss every week and say, I want more money than Justin Jefferson, and I've never got it. But I'm going to try. So I'm not going to blame Jamarr Chase for trying.
Yeah.
He probably deserves more than I do. But no, you know what? We've talked a little bit about this before. Jamar's only, for all the credit he gets as like a fantasy superstar, he's only had one season where he's even hit 1,400 yards. One season where he's hit 10 touchdowns, both his rookie year. We're now 3+ years removed from that. He's not equaled either of those again. And he's got some good stats, number 7 in yards after catch, number 8 in juke rate, our friends and player profiler. But at the same time, he is pretty clearly to me, not like a level below guys like Jefferson. So
is he a top 5 receiver? He wants top 1 wide receiver money, but is he top 5?
In my head, I don't know. I think there's a bunch of guys you could argue for top 5. When I'm looking at the top, I'm looking at Tyreek Hill. I'm looking at Justin Jefferson.
CeeDee Lamb.
You can even make an argument for Amon-Ra. Beyond that, I don't know that there's not. I mean, there may not be a fit. There's like a bunch of guys you could argue are number 5. I'm a little cooler on Jamarr Chase, and I don't want to pay him like Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, when you say Jamarr Chase's name, it feels like he's been in the league for a while, right? Like this is the beginning of his 4th year. He's only been in the league 3 years, which is kind of crazy to think about. Whether he deserves it or not, I mean, we'll have to see, but it sounds like he's expecting to be paid top dollar this coming off season. He already told Cincy he's not going to try to renegotiate during the year. He's going to play it out. He took a huge insurance policy. I believe it was like $50 million for this season, just to ensure that he doesn't get asked out if like something happens to him, he gets hurt without a contract on the table for him. But this is exactly.
Could this be like a scheme? Like this sounds like something I would do. Like, hey, I'm gonna insure myself for $50 million, then like throw myself against the wall and just be like, I don't even need you to pay me. Says I don't need to like come out and play football.
I mean, I think there's stipulations, man. I don't think you could just throw yourself against the wall. I think it has to happen during course of play. But you could try it. I mean, that would hurt, but you could try it.
Be right back.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll see. I bet they end up paying him. I feel like every wide receiver resets the market. It's what happened this offseason. It's going to happen next offseason, I feel like. And that wide receiver market is just exploding. So we'll have to see. All right, next up, we've got Bryce Young. We talked about him getting benched, but wanted to talk through it a little bit. What do we think? I mean, Andy Dalton, he's back again. He's like the cockroach quarterback. Like he's just stepping in when teams need him, and he's serviceable, right? But I don't know what they're doing out there in Carolina because Dave Canales is brought in. Bryce Young is in his 2nd year. He's only been playing 2 games. He only barely played a few snaps in the preseason, and he's being asked to install this new offense with a new coach. He's still young as a QB. He's still growing, and now they're yanking him out of the lineup already. What are your thoughts on this for Bryce Young? Like, should they have done it, or how do you think they should have handled this?
I am hoping there's a method to this. I mean, Canales was known as the quarterback whisperer. He obviously worked magic with Geno Smith, with Baker Mayfield. And the weird thing to me is Bryce Young, it talked about before, he was bad for number one pick last year. He wasn't terrible for a rookie. Like, I know this sounds weird. It's not great for Panthers fans, but if he was drafted in like the third or fourth round, people would have been really happy with his rookie year. And then every stat, completion percentage down, interception percentage up, a touchdown percent obviously down because he hasn't thrown one. So he looked hard.
As our quarterback, he has yet to throw a touchdown.
So I'm kind of hoping that Canales is maybe just giving him a mental reset. There was a clip going around on Twitter where he looked like he was about to almost like cry during like a drive after throwing another interception. So I'm hoping they're not giving up on him. I'm hoping they're just saying, hey, let's get out a week or two. Let's get a mental reset. It's what the Jets tried with Zach Wilson. Doesn't always work, but yeah, what do you think?
It's funny you say mental reset. I was on IG today and I saw this clip of Bryce Young walking out of practice afterwards, and he just looked so dejected, man. He looked so sad. And then a fan called him over and asked him for his autograph. I don't know if they felt bad for him, but he walks over, signs the jersey and the football, and the fan has to encourage him. He's like, keep your head up, man. It's like, that's really sad. He was the number one pick a year later, and a fan's having to tell you to keep your head up. But let me ask you a hypothetical.
It could be worse though, right? The fan could have been like, "Oh,
you suck."
Sorry, I thought you were Chuba Hubbard. I didn't realize I was getting. Oh, Brett. No, never mind.
I thought you were Miles Sanders. No, let me ask you a hypothetical, because you said if he was like a third or fourth round pick, maybe fans or the team would be more open to his performance and not be so hard on his performance thus far. But obviously we talked about CJ Stroud had like amazing record setting, phenomenal rookie year. Let's say the hypothetical is CJ Stroud doesn't have the CJ Stroud year. He has some middling, what you'd expect middle of the road rookie performance. Does this affect how Bryce Young is looked at because he was the number one pick?
I mean, it affects how people talk about him online, right? But I don't think it impacts what the Panthers are doing. I think at the end of the day, he came back worse. Again, to be clear, I said if he was a third, fourth round pick, you would have been happy with how he played last year. And you would have said that I can't wait to see if he progresses this year. I mean, he had a 60% completion percentage line. Like, not good, but not awful. Yeah, the way the team's playing, the way he's playing, I don't think it matters. They've been blown out twice. And I think any coach, any GM who's trying to like keep his job would want to make a change.
Yeah. I just think the CJ Stroud performance from last year and even this year just aren't great from an optics perspective. And I think that had a little bit to do with it, but we'll see. I mean, Bryce Young is young and maybe that front office has failed him a little bit, but we'll have to see if he rebounds. Let's take it to another topic. And we had done this previously on some players. We did a fraud or for real, but we're going to do a fraud or for real team edition. So we have a few teams we want to talk about. They've had some up and down performances this year. Let's start with the teams that were supposed to be good and just have not stepped up to the plate and met expectations thus far, super early. But so far, the Ravens are 0-2. The Bengals are 0-2. Are they frauds? Are they for real? Are these records real? What do you think about the Ravens and the Bengals, Hawk? Are they going to turn things around, or is this more representative of things to come?
I think the Ravens are. It's funny because that would mean in this case that they're actually good, but I think they are for real, and the performance is fraud. I think that the Chiefs game was close and they're good, right? So Ravens for real. Bengals.
Wait. The Ravens though, they didn't look great against the Raiders. I mean, they blew a lead, and it's the Raiders, but maybe the Raiders are better than we thought, but they blew that lead and they were up 10.
They did blow the lead. As weird as it sounds, I think they kind of expected to come out and like beat the Raiders, and they did. They started out well, and I think they kind of took their foot off the gas.
Yep. Okay. So you think the Ravens will be better going forward?
Yeah, I think the Bengals are in between. I think they're better than they started. Again, tough start. Burrow's coming off an injury. Looked much better last week. I expect to win out of them this week.
So the Bengals, they always have a super slow start, right? I think every September they kind of just roll out of bed and, scratch themselves. And they're like, wait, are we supposed to get started? And that's true for like Burrow and Chase and all of their like main skill players. And then they turn it on. I think it's a dangerous game to play, right? Like their defense isn't very good. And Burrow, I don't know. People don't know. Is he hurt? Is his wrist bothering him? He says no, but he's starting slow again. You got Chase, who had the contract dispute, was holding in after holding out. T. Higgins is hurt. They have no true running game anymore. They got Zach Moss, I guess. They don't have like a veteran Mixon that they relied on in the past. So I don't know if they could just flip the switch and just expect to turn things on once the calendar page turns, but we'll have to see. I do think the Bengals will have a bit of a fight on their hands this year. I don't think they're going to be able to just, like I said, flip the switch and then become like an 11-6 team or something like that all of a sudden.
Only 17 games in the NFL. This is not MLB. You can't wait a few games and turn it on.
Exactly. All right. So on the flip side of things, there are a few teams that were supposed to be bad or no one really had any expectations for, but have actually started off pretty well and look pretty good in the process. Like they're not fluke wins. But what do we think about these 3 2-0 teams? All of them 2-0. The New Orleans Saints has been balling out, right? The Minnesota Vikings had an impressive win over the Niners at home. Look really good. Sam Darnold. I mean, talk about low expectations. He's completely bested those expectations thus far. Maybe not the best quarterback in the league, but he's definitely looked really, really solid in leading that team so far to a 2-0 record. And speaking of solid QB play, Baker Mayfield with the Bucks, they're also 2-0, right? So what do we think about these teams? We're supposed to be mediocre or even bad. They're 2-0 this far. Who's for real in this case? And then who's a fraud?
Yeah, so the Saints, I think, are both at the same time. I think Kubiak has made a difference, right? They're clearly an improved team right now. I mean, their numbers are off the charts. Like, if you were to believe they're for real with what they're doing right now, you would say these guys are the Super Bowl favorite. I don't think that's the case. I think they're going to come back to earth a little bit. I think Carr has limitations, even in a Kubiak offense. Vikings, on the other hand, good.
Before you go to the Vikings, though, so on that note, not saying they're going to be a Super Bowl contender per se, but are they a playoff team?
Yeah, I think they're a playoff team. I think if we start out all the teams, so we'll say playoff team, but not at anywhere close to their current level.
Okay. All right. How about the Vikings? 2-0 so far. Thoughts?
I think they'll push for the playoffs. I think it's going to be a harder road for them, but their defense is legitimate. And, look, I'll pat myself on the back a little bit. You may remember from the offseason, I was saying Cousins might be overrated and Darnold, we're underrating him, and they've got a lot of talent on offense. So not particularly surprised they're doing well. So I'll pat myself on the back there and just ask you not to bring up my Amari Cooper takes as I do that.
But the thing about the Vikings, too, I think people will probably solve Darnold a little bit. I think if you play him for 17 games, you'll begin to see enough of those terrible decisions that he makes. I know everyone loves his arm talent. That's not the issue. That's why he was a top, 5 pick, right? But you play him enough, those decisions will bear out. But I do think that the Vikings have some reinforcements coming, right? Jordan Addison will get healthy eventually. TJ Hawkinson will come back. So that offense actually could look a little bit better if Darnold can just minimize his mistakes.
Good offensive line. And I think Justin Jefferson will erase a lot of your mistakes. Like, hey, this guy is open in the middle of the field, makes it a lot easier to throw than last time Darnold was a starter, where he was like throwing to DJ Moore, who was legit. But then, Robbie Chosen, once CMC went down, that team had basically nobody.
Yeah.
I think they had Chuba back then as a rookie. So.
Yep, exactly. All right, and then lastly, Baker and the Bucks. Baker's Bucks. Are they for real or frauds?
Kind of the same thing as the Saints, but maybe a step down. I think they're good. They're a team that'll push for the playoffs. I don't think they're quite as good as some of the numbers, but we thought with Godwin in the slot, he's dangerous. Dirty slot.
Yeah.
We like him there. Evans obviously good. Bucky Irving gives them another counter to Rashad White, and they've got a solid defense. So I think they're going to be a good team.
I think they'll push for the wild card. Potentially. I think, like you said, they'll pull back a little bit. 2-0 is a nice little start, but eventually I think that run game has got to tick up for them. I mean, right now they're fully reliant on Baker Mayfield throwing the ball. The running game has been super inefficient. I think that's why you're seeing more Bucky Irving, because Rashad White has just not been able to muster any efficiency up, kind of similar to last year, actually. So if that run game doesn't turn it around, people are going to bear down on Baker Mayfield. And maybe Baker's better. I mean, I'm going to give him a little respect. I mean, he's definitely surprised me. He's kind of turned into like a solid pro. I wouldn't say he's amazing, but he's put up some good performance this year. So we'll see what he does the rest of the season.
Quarterback coach is Bryce Young. So look, that's you can get a more ringing endorsement.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, we'll see. We have a couple frauds, a couple for reals there, and the whole mix of teams that are 1-1. There's so many teams that are just like in the middle of the pack, and we don't know what to make anything of them yet, but we'll have to see what happens in week 3.
Just like my fantasy teams. Fraud or for real? We'll find out this week.
Yeah, probably frauds, but All right, well, that wraps up this episode of the Smash Pod. Hope you enjoyed this Chef's Table. We were dicing up some topics and headlines from across the league. Hawk, as always, why don't you let everyone know where they can continue to listen and follow us along as we continue to play some amazing free tournaments that give people free money and league play too.
Yep. Subscribe on whatever podcast software you're listening to. Go to smashupsports.com and register today. Free weekly tournaments, season-long play, and single-player campaigns coming soon. And then go to social media, other places, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, you name it, at SmashUpSports. You can find those in the description, and we will see you next time.
All right, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope everyone has a better day than Bryce Young. Smash Bros out.
Wait, who did I get an autograph from? What was that? It was a mistake.
I think it was Bryce. Not sure.
It was Bryce.
Keep your head up.
We love you. Keep your head up.